good, guys? Welcome back to the Milk Carton series. I'm your host, Stephanie, if you are new. And as always, guys, we thank you for tuning in. Today's episode, it will be a little different because I chose this episode because I often get asked what stories have stuck with me. And if you guys been following me, you know I went to school for forensics, and some stories were kind of the pivotal point in my life what led me down this road, besides my nephew and my cousin's case. And one day I will do their stories on here, but I really want to turn that into something. So stay tuned for those two stories. But there also have been other cases where they truly have stuck with me. They were kind of the pivotal point of why I chose forensics, along with personal reasonings, and one being the Shaniya Davis story. I'm very sure you heard about this story. This story literally made national news. It struck our hearts all across the world, and it's just a story that I wanted to share on this platform because not only did it change some things for Child Protective Services in North Carolina, but it also can be a great example as to how we deal with our children. And not only that, for me, if you guys been, like I said, been following me for a long time, you guys know my mother did not really raise me at some point in time because my mother also had a drug problem. And so this story kind of hit a nerve because it could been any one of us who've been in those situations with our parents who have done drugs and, chose that route of life. And now I will say, not everyone that does drugs will do this, but you just never know. So now, Shaniya Davis went missing on November 10th of 2009. Now, her father, Bradley Lockhart, was her sole provider, and her aunt, Carrie Lockhart, also had a pivotal role in raising Shaniya. Now, her mother, Antoinette Davis, would get Shaniya on weekends here and there, but the main goal that Bradley wanted was he wanted Antoinette to be a mother. He wanted Antoinette to have a relationship with her daughter because Shaniya was getting older. Although she was only 5, it's very important to have your mother around and to be there. And although she had her aunt, I can definitely understand what he was trying to do.
Of course, I had some reserves. However, she had been trying. I know that she had been working for at least 6 months, and she had been trying to get her life back on track. And she said she had just recently got her own place. So I was wanting to give her a chance. She had asked if she could be a mother, and I felt that she was sincere in asking, and figured to give her a chance.
And that's why I feel so bad for Bradley, because as I read and as I learned more about Shaniya Davis back then when I was 18, oh my goodness, it just pulled at my heart to know that you were trying to do the right thing, and this woman who was supposed to be her biological mother does some evil crap like this. Well, as I said, Shaniya went missing on November 10th. She was staying with her biological mother, Antoinette Davis, in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Now, certain articles, they start to describe this night of when Shaniya went missing. And Antoinette, she kind of had like a story built up. Her story surrounded her story basically surrounded as if like Shaniya was kidnapped, to say the least. But really, in reality, she really knew what had happened to Shaniya. But that didn't turn up until as the story started to fold and as the viewers were watching and trying to figure out where Shaniya was, right? So on this day, she's reported missing, right? Then later in the evening, there had been video footage that came out where they have found Shaniya with an unknown man carrying her in a hotel, which was about 30 miles from where she was supposed to be at. Luckily, the hotel worker reported this, right? Because he had seen Shaniya and seen her from the postings. And thank gosh, this good citizen was able to do this because it started to put the trail on for the case, right? So law enforcement ended up finding out that this was a man by the name of Mario McNeil. Mario McNeil had knew Antoinette Davis because it had been reported he was dating her sister and he would sell Antoinette drugs. And Come to find out, as the story keeps unfolding, Antoinette owed him money. She owed him money, and it was either you pay up or it was sex. So, like I said, the story begins to unfold. McNeil is telling what has happened. On November 13th, McNeil turns himself in for the kidnapping of Shaniya. But he doesn't say where Shaniya is, because at this point, Shaniya is still not found. And then a day later, on November 14th, Antoinette is charged with human trafficking and selling her child for sex. And then on December 16th, Shaniya's body is found.
I would like to extend a special thanks, a heartfelt thanks, to all them volunteers who went out looking for my angel. Spent tirelessly hours out there, very selfless of himself, and it won't go unnoticed by God.
So let's backtrack on this. So as reports would come with text messages from McNeil's phone, it had been reported that he had gotten high and drunk off liquor the night before Shaniya disappeared, right? And he started texting women in his phone. And I feel like this was like an undercover story that Antoinette copped together, because in this thing, she says that, you know, McNeil knew where she lived. Of course, he knew how to get in the home. She notices someone opening the bedroom door, and then Shaniya is gone. And that's just kind of how, like, what she runs with. But then she ended up coming out and saying that she sold Shaniya for sex. All McNeil was supposed to do was have sex with her. Your freaking 5-year-old daughter is what you're saying? 5-year-old daughter who doesn't even have her body developed, who doesn't even have organs developed yet. She's still growing. 5 years old. If you were that desperate, you should have just gave your own coochie up, Miss Ma'am. And that's what I couldn't realize. Like, if you knew you were knee deep into some stuff, knowing that you owed money, I am not selling my child, my flesh and blood. And so Bradley tells Oprah, because he did an interview with Oprah, him and his sister, and he tells Oprah that he didn't know that Antoinette had a drug problem, although she was living in a bad environment, because that's kind of why Shaniya was living with him. Shaniya was living with him to have more of a better environment, more stable. And I kind of feel for him, because don't get me wrong, yes, people who live in poverty-stricken neighborhoods are not always on drugs. I grew up in poverty, grew up in the hood, projects, all of that. My father was not on drugs. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like it's always a stereotype when it pertains to that. So I feel so bad for him and the sister, because the sister is the one that dropped Shaniya off to the mother, because, she wanted to get Shaniya. She wanted to watch Shaniya, whatever, continue to have a relationship with Shaniya. But sadly, in my mind, I feel like this was all a ploy. I really just don't believe she wanted to have a relationship with her daughter. I really don't. And drugs, like I said, make people do the most horrendous crap. It's no excuse, but it does. And what's even trifling is Antoinette had a boyfriend, and she was trying to blame it on the boyfriend at first. And the boyfriend was brought in originally. So, like, if you ever see articles, you'll see that sometimes some of them say that he was the person that did it, but he did not do this. He was not. I believe he took a polygraph test, and he passed. But then the video footage came out, and they ended up finding out who, in fact, was that man, from the hotel. What's even crazier about this case is that months before Shaniya disappeared, all drug enforcement had came to raid the home of Antoinette Davis, but it was not reported. It was not reported to the Child Protective Services for the children. And the Cumberland County school officials also had some concerns about the family, but again, wasn't reported. And Child Protective Services were not reported, nor did they check, nor was any of this pretty much in the system. And if it had been, just maybe, Bradley would have never sent his daughter there to have a relationship with her, because apparently she had got a job. She was doing much better with her life, but that was BS. And so Shaniya Davis, her autopsy reported that, she was raped and she died from strangulation. Super sad. It's kind of baffling because it should have never happened to this baby. And that's what really struck me, and had stuck with me, because that little girl did not deserve that because of the actions of her mother, and it's just hurtful. And I can only imagine, as the dad, he probably blamed the crap out of himself because he only wanted Shaniya to have a relationship with this woman, and it turned out she was the reason why she would later die. Just pure evil. I just can't even imagine how a grown man would even want to do something like that. Like, something really has to be mentally wrong with you to do stuff like that to children. And he probably killed Shaniya because, of course, him not even realizing video footage, but realizing that she could be the one to say he did something to her, to going back and telling her dad and her aunt. But that's today's story, guys. This story truly struck a chord. It has always lived with me. Always thought about this little baby and how she truly didn't deserve to die in this manner. She had so much more life to give. She's so beautiful, and it's just one of those cases where, you think about, and now years later, you're like, wow, she would be a teenager now, so it just sucks that people do evil things in this world and there's really no explanations for it. So that's one case that struck me. It has lived with me. As time goes on, I'll share other stories. I feel like that we're in like I said, the pivotal point of me entering forensics and what led me down this road as well. So until the next episode, guys, I'll see you. As always, stay safe and hug your babies a little tighter because, some evil people out here, okay?